Hello, and welcome to another edition of the FinCrime Connection. I'm Phil at Jade ThirdEye, and my colleague Claire is going to take us through the latest updates of what we've seen in the FinCrime world.
Hi. Yeah, so it's been a bit quieter this month than in the past few months, but I've managed to dig out a few interesting stories for us to chat about today, Phil. I'm going to start with some updates from OFSI. We've got a couple of law enforcement, money laundering enforcements. Very briefly touch on the future of digital identities, and then I thought it would be worth having a little chat around the forthcoming changes to the money laundering regs.
Cool, sounds like a plan.
So first up this month is the news that OFSI have announced the Consolidated List of asset freezes is closing, and from the 28th of January 2026, the UK Sanctions List will be the only source for all UK sanctions designations. We will share the link for that in the notes below this.
Cool, and practically, I suppose in terms of whoever you're using to screen and whatever vendor or tool you're using, I guess you've got to act pretty soon in terms of ensuring that you're following the right watch lists and make sure that actually your screening's set up for the new rules that come in Jan.
Yeah, absolutely. If you get your data through a third party provider, then I would expect that provider will take care of this for you. But if you rely on OFSI directly to get your sanctions data, then you will need to amend your processes to make sure you're getting the most up-to-date data from the right source.
Yeah, perfect.
The next thing I had to mention today, just a couple of interesting recent developments. One relating to an NCA operation in Northern Ireland. And there were two updates to this. So initially, one man was arrested as part of an investigation. Number of businesses and residential properties searched. Cash and electronic devices were seized. And it was later confirmed that cash totaling 2.6 million was seized in that operation. So that was a significant seizure and excellent work there by the NCA.
It's a lot of money to be to keeping under the mattress, isn't it? 2.6 million quid. Wow.
Yes. From the press release, I suspected it was more than the NCA had expected to recover from the first release to the second.
Right. The next topic has caused a lot of debate in the press on both sides of the political spectrum, and why we, of course, want to remain apolitical. Nevertheless, quite a controversial, if we can call it that, topic around digital ID and the regulators pushing its role in financial crime prevention. And obviously, Labour and Conservative and the Lib Dems, everyone has an opinion on this. The population has an opinion on this. But I suppose in terms of thinking specifically and in context around financial crime, what are your thoughts and what's been talked about, and I guess your opinion as well, with that context of will it help and stop or put some friction into the FinCrime sort of ecosystem in a positive way? Just your take on it would be interesting.
I mean, personally, I think it's a really positive move. The FCA has publicly backed the move this week. So at their annual meeting on the 9th of October, the FCA's senior leaders made the case for digital identity in terms of tightening things like identity verification and fraud prevention, and in the ongoing fight against financial crime and money laundering. It's the debate I don't think we should get too far into today, but I think how compulsory any ID scheme should be and how that integrates with existing AML and KYC obligations. Firms already have a lot of overhead invested in ID and KYC. So this would be yet another change, but I think this is long overdue. I think when we look at our counterparts across Europe, most countries already have some kind of digital ID scheme, and I think it's a non-conversation personally. I think it's something that we should just adopt sooner rather than later, personally. But it is definitely something that firms need to keep a close eye on and consider what changes, if this progresses, what changes they will need to make to their onboarding processes and ongoing monitoring, and how this actually will help them in the fight against financial crime.
Yeah, and I think what is fairly obvious to say, I suppose, is it's not going to happen anytime soon. As even if it is, granted all the approvals that are needed, a project of this size and scale is going to take years to implement. So there'll be definitely a line of sight on what firms can do, should do, and everything else. But yeah, it's not something that we'll be entering into probably the controls process in 2026. It'll be much farther into the future before we get this done.
Yeah. I think really positive move from the FCA to publicly back this, though, and I think what we should be doing is keeping an eye on the FCA and their narrative on how this progresses, and hopefully, if it does progress, we'll get some decent guidance around operationalising this within financial services.
Cool. And finally, over the next few weeks, we should expect a few more details to be confirmed on the proposed changes to the money laundering regulations, as a consultation period, in fact, closed at the end of September. So what are we thinking is going to make it into final legislation? Any thoughts, perspectives from your side, Claire?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one, is this. Much of the proposed change is around heading towards a more risk-based approach. However, the Law Society have raised objections to some of the proposed changes, particularly around pooled client accounts, arguing that full CDD on all client accounts, regardless of the risk level, actually is disproportionate and could lead to increased costs and delays for clients. The Law Society is also calling for more evidence to support the proposals, and says that regulators should be focusing on improving existing processes rather than simply incurring costs to overhaul and replace what's already there. The view from the Law Society is very much that the regulations are very focused on larger firms, and particularly high street banks, and that the regulations are not proportionate for smaller firms, and certainly not proportionate and not fit for purpose for small law firms. So it will be interesting to see whether or not those objections actually change the way the legislation will be shaped. But hopefully we'll find that out in the next few weeks.
Yeah, watch this space. Great.
Yeah.
Well, I think that probably brings us to a close for this edition of the FinCrime Connection. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Claire. And as ever, if anyone has any thoughts, comments, or suggestions, please give us some feedback. We'd love to hear from you, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.